The Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes people need to hear it from somebody like you, or someone like Jocko, or, the beautiful thing about these podcasts is that you get to hear people's perspective, and a lot of them are eye-opening. They literally can change the world because they change the way you behave and you interact with people when you listen to it. Yeah. And that podcast that you did with Jocko, when I was listening to it, it changed my whole day. It changed like how I was going to look at my day. I was, instead of like looking at my day like, oh, it's a normal day, I was thinking, God damn, I'm lucky. Yeah. God damn, I'm lucky. And God damn, imagine experiencing what you, and how old were you at the time?
I was 21.
21 years old.
Yeah.
And experiencing what you experienced in that insane firefight, being locked down. And how many guys did you wind up engaging with?
I don't know. I don't know. Everyone that I got an opportunity with, right? And it just, it was just it was so chaotic. I think about it all the time, obviously. It's something I could have never experienced. I trained for war every single day when I was in the Marine Corps. It was what my job was, and I still could have never imagined that day the way it was or anything to turn out. I could have never pictured it. I could have never. And I think every day it goes by, I think there's a reckoning of it, right? The way that I seen it that day is not the way I see it today. And I think that comes with, just sharpening and just your body, you change and you see different things in perspective. But yeah, that day, it still is just, it's just, there's so many lessons that come from that day that I look at people complaining about stuff here in America, and it's like, I seen in one day the best of humans, the worst of humans, and nobody thought they were wrong. And it's possible, it's just one of those deals of that day was just.
That's an important point what you just said. Nobody thought they were wrong. Not them, not you.
Yeah, and it changed me that day. Like, I walked in there that day, and I was the guy who was cocky, who would tell you, I loved fighting. You know what I mean? Like I just want to go fight. Like, but every fight I had before that, it was like, I always had airplanes sitting, or helicopters sitting around. I always had, it was like, I'm going to go in there and start the fight, and then I'm going to call in all this other stuff to win, right? And that day it wasn't there, and literally I walked out of there, and I just think about all the time today. I just think about all the time of how many generations just that day were changed. How many generations of people's lives were changed. All my teammates died, so they'll never have kids. That generation stopped. Their families forever exist. So many lives were changed that day by that piece. And guess what? And everybody in America had no clue what was going on. Like right now, there are U.S. troops. Somebody wondering if they're going to be able to come home and see their family again. That's reality. Whether you want to ignore it or not, like, that's reality. And that was me, September 8, 2009. And it was just it was a chaotic day.
It's amazing how you could have thousands of days in your life, and one day changes the way you look at everything.
One day changes the way you look at everything. And, and like the further I go on, I look at it different. I always talk about this story of, whenever this guy came up behind me, and I ended up killing him with a rock. And I always remember I see it every night. Like, I remember, like, I just see his face. And like, because there was a point that I feel like that anybody that, whether they're injured or anything, like, they realize they're defeated. I don't know. I just think there's a point when you look at somebody and they know they're going to die. And I'll never forget that. And now I look at it and I see it, and I always think that, like, this guy is a son to somebody. His mother and father are going to miss him. This guy, he believes in his cause as much as I do. He doesn't believe he's wrong. This guy, he could have had a wife or kids that are never going to see their father again. Just like, you know, my dad might have never seen me again if it was switched. And really, I don't even know. I don't hate him. I don't even know this guy. We're just here at this place right now because we were born in 2 different countries.
Were you out of weapons? Were you out of ammo?
He had came up and he started choking me. I had shot him once before, and I was trying to pick my buddy Dada Lee. My one of my closest Afghans, Dada Lee, had been shot. He had been killed, and I came around this terrace to get him, and I was on my knee, and this guy came up behind me, and
so he didn't have a weapon either. He was
no, he did. He had a weapon, and I ended up shooting him from the ground. And I thought he was dead when he fell on the ground. And I kind of moved down and got down with Dada Lee because I was still getting shot at from this machine gun up on this hill. And I was trying to make myself small as I could. And this guy ends up coming up and choking me. Like I thought he was dead. And he ends up choking me out. He starts trying to choke me out and eventually let up a little bit. And I ended up getting around him. And we were fighting back and forth. And I can remember all I was thinking about was like, don't let his legs get on me. Like, you know, these guys, their legs are, I mean, they've been crawling up mountains their whole life. And he was a pretty big dude. And I just remember getting on top of him. Finally, I got on top of him, and I was rolling on top of him. He didn't have all the gear on, I did. And I remember getting on top of him like I was straddling him, and I'm just reaching up trying to grab for anything I can. And I'm holding him and holding him down with my throat, with my forearm, and I'm just grabbing anything I can. And finally I ended up grabbing a rock, and I just started beating this dude's face in. And I just started beating and beating and beating. And I remember just like finally, like after hitting him, you know, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, 4 or 5 times, whatever. I remember him like finally just kind of looking at me and like just it's like he's like I'm just looking him in the eyes, like obviously closer than me to you right now, and you just see you can tell like he knows where this is going. And I always think about that, you know. Obviously I would kill him a million times over again, right? He was the enemy. Like I don't feel bad about that part of it, but I just think about like in that moment, if I can find a way to relate to him in that moment, a man I'm taking his life, we all in America can find a way to connect with each other. If we don't connect with each other, it's because we choose not to. I don't care what your differences are. Like, find a reason of why we can get along, not why we should not get along.
Right.
And I always think about that moment, you know, of this guy, and, you know, he obviously ended up dying, and what it showed me is that no cause that you have that's built on hate will survive. I didn't hate this guy. I didn't even know him, but I was willing to take his life because of what I loved. And that's what we have to build our lives and our foundation on, is not being angry and hating each other, but because we love the cause that we believe in so much. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I understand what you're saying.